So if you're anything like myself and you've been a Nikon shooter for quite a few years, then I'm sure you have some really nice f-mount lenses hanging around, maybe collecting a little dust, hopefully not. But several years ago, I myself invested in the 105 1.4 lens, and it's a very beautiful lens that I've used many times in my professional and in my personal work. But now that I've switched over from my Nikon D5 to the Nikon Z9, I'm also looking at switching over my f-mount lenses to the kind of similar Z-mount lenses that I can find in the lineup. Recently, Nikon has announced the 135mm f1.8 Plena lens, and I was very lucky enough to rent it and head out into the street and do a night portrait session. It was a very beautiful lens to use, and it's very nice. I really like it a lot. Check out that video in my channel as well. But for me to go and get rid of the 105 1.4, which was a lens I've loved for many years, and to invest now in the 135 1.8, the 135 needs to be quite a lot better than the 105 for me to go out and take the time and money and invest in the new lens. So I thought I'd take the two lenses out, do a comparison photo shoot, and see which one is best for myself and best for the kind of shooting that I do. So first off, before we get to the photo shoot, let's just take a look at the actual physical differences in the two lenses. So first off, the 105 is 985 grams, where the 135 is 995 grams. So basically the same weight. They're both not light lenses, but not overly super heavy. And I can attest that both are very nice balanced on camera when shooting. So weight isn't really a bit of a differentiating factor with the two lenses. The 105 has 9 aperture blades, where the 135 has 11 aperture blades. So the two lenses will produce a bit of a differently shaped bokeh when you have light in the background and things like that. I think the 135 will have slightly more rounded bokeh than the 105, but both produce really good bokeh, I think. One of the selling points of both of these lenses is silent focus. The 105 utilizes what's called a silent wave motor to keep the focus on it very quiet, where the 135 uses, and let me just double check, dual STM stepping motors for its quick and silent autofocus. So they're both very quiet in their autofocusing, they just use two different methods of achieving that. Now the 105 1.4 lens is a very simple lens. It has no function buttons, it has no aperture ring on it, it's just a prime lens, just as it is what you got. But the 135 has 2 programmable function buttons and an adjustable aperture ring that you can use to adjust the aperture as you like. Also, just a small point, the 105 1.4 is actually a little bit shorter in size than the 135 1.8. Kind of go figures with the different focal length on that the 105 would be a little bit shorter. But when it's in your bag, it might be a bit of a consideration to keep all your lenses and cameras and stuff as compact as possible. Maybe you're a mountain hiker or things like that, and you've got to be very careful with space. And lastly, the 105 is an f1.4 lens, where the 135 is an f1.8. So technically, the 105 should be a better lens in darker situations, should have a larger aperture to let more light in, should also create more bokeh, you would think. But with the longer focal length of the 135, even at 1.8, probably has very similar bokeh to the 105. And we'll talk about that later in the video when we look at some images to compare and contrast and see which one is better or which one has more or less bokeh. But as always, how do these two lenses actually compare in a real world situation of out in the street shooting portraits and things like that? So I invited my good friend B-Girl Kanami out to Enoshima, which is kind of close to where I live. Let me show you a little edit I did of the photos and the video that I took with both lenses, and you can kind of see and compare for yourself which one you think looks more aesthetically pleasing and which is the better lens in your opinion. Let's check it out. So could you tell a big difference between the two lenses? I can't, honestly. Like, I actually had to go into the metadata of the photos and the videos I shot just to double check which ones are shot with the 105 and which ones are shot with the 35. And I had to relabel everything in my computer just so I don't get mixed up when trying to edit this video. Because to me, they all look rather kind of similar. Well, saying that though, as you're shooting, you do notice a few differences in the two lenses. Now, as I mentioned, the 105 is an f1.4, where the 135 is an f1.8. And you would think with the larger f-stop that the 105 would produce more bokeh. But I actually see, looking at the pictures in that, the 135 1.8 with the extended focal length over the 105, it seems to produce actually the same, if not stronger bokeh in a lot of the situations that I was shooting. You can see these images here. They're very same in composition, but I think the 105 seems to have a stronger bokeh. I think it looks very, very nice, and it's not over bokeh at all, but it does seem to produce a little bit of a stronger bokeh over the 105, even though it is a smaller f-stop. So you kind of intuitively think it'd be a more bokeh because the 105 is a 1.4, but because of the difference in focal length, even at 1.8, the 135 seems to produce more bokeh in the images that I took. Now, while we were shooting, I had face detection, eye detection on my Z9 set to on so that I could automatically track everything on Konami's face and that, and it worked out very, very well. The Z9 is great for auto tracking, and both lenses did a great job in keeping up with any kind of a quick movement and stuff like that, and I never really lost autofocus on the face anytime we were shooting. Now, just as like looking back, I do feel the 135 was a bit smoother and a bit quicker in its autofocus while she was dancing and things like that, but it's not really something I noticed in the videos or afterwards. It's just kind of a feeling I had when I was shooting. They were similar, if not the 135 just a little bit better in my own opinion, but that's just kind of like a feeling I had while I was shooting. There was really no huge difference at all. Now, all the images we got on this day, due to the lighting conditions, even with the 105, there wasn't very strong vignette in any of my images, but I have been shooting with the 105 at 1.4 quite a lot over the few years, and I know that depending on the lighting conditions, it can naturally produce kind of a stronger-ish vignette on the images. The 135, on the other hand, because of its design and the way it's built, it actually doesn't create any vignette on the image, and it's very sharp from edge to edge. So I know in my personal shooting and with some of the jobs I do, when I've shot with the 105, I've actually had clients ask me to remove the vignette that it creates. And they've asked me like, oh, when you edit the images, can you not add a vignette? I'm like, well, I'm not adding a vignette. It's just naturally occurring from the 105 lens. It's just how it is. Comparing that with the 135, the big point here is I think that the 135 produces no vignette. So you're starting with a much cleaner image from edge to edge. This is kind of like a real big bonus points for the 135 over the 105. Now, one kind of another bonus points for the 135 is when I use it on my Z9, it is a Z-mount lens, so it just goes on my Z-mount camera very easily. It just goes on there super fast in that. But when I am using the F-mount 105 1.4, I need to then add the adapter onto the lens as well. So even though the 105 1.4, if you're looking online to get a new one or maybe a used one, it probably is the less expensive of the two options, but you also have to factor the couple $100 it costs to get the adapter. And using the adapter, it adds time, it adds a bit of a hassle to attaching that to the lens and then attaching that to the camera. There's the extra little lens caps that I always seem to lose and put somewhere that they're not supposed to be and things like that. And honestly speaking, if I can never use that adapter again and all my lenses are Z mounts, I'd be super happy. Because like I said, it does add time, hassle and stuff when changing lenses and things like that. And it is just another small little piece of equipment that if I do forget to throw in my bag before going to a shoot, that's half my lenses that I can't use anymore. Now lastly, and I did mention this in my night portrait shooting with the 135, but the difference in space that is needed to shoot with the 105 compared to the 135 is actually a pretty big factor for me when shooting portraits. With the 135, you have to be just that much farther back, just that much further away when you want to shoot anything other than a really close-in cropped headshot. When you're shooting 3/4 of a body or heaven forbid, a full body shot, you got to get way back there. And it actually really makes communicating with your model, creating any kind of rapport or chemistry with your model, that much more difficult. I find when I'm shooting with the 105, it is actually like a really good distance from me to the model. With I'm shooting headshots, half body shots, 3/4 shots and everything. It gets me nice, a little bit closer, just that little bit more intimate when I'm shooting with it. But it's not like I'm really, really close into their face when like if I was to shoot maybe portraits, close-up portraits with a 24mm or something like that, which I would never do, but if you're too close to your model, then that can make them uncomfortable. But if you're too far away, like I said, it makes communication quite difficult. And actually looking on the 105 1.4 website that Nikon has in English, there's a really good quote on there. I'm just going to read it. And it says, "The focal length, 105mm on FX cameras, creates an ideal working distance that's close enough to interact with the subject." And I totally agree with that. I think a really big difference when using these two lenses is how close am I to my model and how easy is it for me to communicate with them while out shooting. Our shoot down in Enoshima, for the most part, we were in quieter areas and it wasn't that bad, but there was one really cool location where there was the waves and the wind and we could barely hear each other. So when I was shooting with the 135 and trying to get any kind of a full body shot, her dancing or anything like that, I was that much further away, trying to yell at her. Made it that much more difficult to communicate. But I find that the 105 actually, in my personal opinion and experience, is a perfect focal length for doing those kind of shoots. In the end, I was really happy with the images I got from both lenses actually. The 105 did very, very well, and the 135 also did very, very well. They're both very good, high-end lenses and high quality and great glass for sure. But was the 135 that much better than the 105 that I need to scrap it and go out and buy the 135? I'm really not sure just yet. Of course, the 135 is the better lens, but I'm not sure if it's so much better that I need to, scrap my 105 and just run down to the store and buy it right now. Actually, pulling out the 105 and going out and shooting with just it and the 135 for the day kind of made me fall in love with the 105 all over again. I find looking back at the images and video, my favorite shots from the day seem to mostly be from the 105. Maybe I'm just more used to the look of the lens, the look of the images that I get from the lens. But like I said, this little experiment I did kind of made me fall in love with the 105 all over again. So I'm quite happy I was able to do this, and it just makes me appreciate the gear that I have that much more. Because just because it's not the newest and greatest thing out there, a lot of the older f-mount lenses are really, really nice, and they're still beautiful lenses no matter what system you're shooting on. So don't go and throw out all your f-mount lenses just because there's a new Z-mount lens that's come out and everybody seems to be talking about it. Double check and see. Just because it's an f-mount doesn't mean it's garbage. They're beautiful lenses still. And in my own personal opinion, I think I'm gonna wait a little bit and see what else I can do with the 105 still. And then maybe down the road when I have a bit more time and money saved up, I'll invest in a 135. We'll see. But it is a very, very tempting lens to pick up. It's a beautiful lens. And I think it does solve a few issues that the 105 has, but I really like that distance that I can shoot with the 105. So it's a hard decision, and it's not something I've quite made in my heart just yet. So yeah, that's my comparison. The 105 f-mount 1.4 versus the Z-mount 135 1.8. I'm sure everyone has very strong opinions about these lenses, so hit me up in the comments down below. Let me know what you thought about the images I showed you, and if you could tell a real huge difference or not, because honestly, I couldn't. So yeah. Anyways, thanks again for checking out the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.